Well, welcome to the And She Spoke podcast.
Hello, Jenny. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. So, Sandy, today we're going to talk about what it takes to live your life and grow your business from a place of confidence and risk taking
and debt.
And debt. Yeah.
And debt.
Which kind of all go together, really.
Yeah. I've wanted to have this podcast episode. I wanted to do this podcast episode for probably 6 months. And I've got all the points in my head because I just want to scream this message to the rooftops. So let's start by describing, so I think the purpose, why, Jenny, are we doing this podcast? Why is this episode important?
Well, I think we've come to some realizations about ourselves and our audience and our customer base around the relationship that we all have, mostly as women, I think, to debt and our business debt. And, we've talked about this in different capacities before, but it's just becoming really prevalent that people are expressing to us that they're terrified of going into debt to start their business or to grow their business. And I think it's holding a lot of people back, honestly. And I think it held us back to some degree for a long time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think my fear is that women will not be comfortable investing in themselves and their idea and their business, and they'll just flounder and die. And they're just these things that we need so desperately in the world will not be created. So my kind of take on this is I think that women approach going into debt for their business the same way they approach their personal household or personal finance debt, right? Mm-hmm. It would be irresponsible of me to take a credit card and go and buy $6,000 worth of clothes. That's probably not a smart move, right?
Some people would say. Depends how happy it makes you.
True. But so, I would not do that with my personal credit card for something like shoes or clothes or something just items I want to buy. But I and you would absolutely put $6,000 on a credit card and go invest in a program that we knew
a lot more than that,
that we knew that would make us, teach us, show us something that we could invest in ourselves as people, as humans, as thinkers, and skills and knowledge into business that we could build a business with.
Yeah. And I guess I come at it from the place where I spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on my education and previously to starting a business. And that was really hard, but I wrestled with that relationship to debt for my own personal growth when I was in my early 20s and deciding to go to graduate school and then law school. I wrestled with that there. And I think that there is, you have to fundamentally believe in yourself in order to be comfortable assuming, kind of financial liability and investing in something like that. And I think a lot of people maybe don't, or maybe they don't think about it enough. Mm-hmm. I think there's lots of people that flippantly just go to college, for example, and then have all this debt and they didn't really, it's normalized, right?
For education. Yeah. I don't think people think about it when it comes to business. I don't think what I've witnessed is specifically women who will not invest in themselves unless they have the cash in the bank. And their thinking just stops right there. There's no other I really want to do this. How could I do it? It's I will do that when I have the cash in the bank to spend it. And so we wanted to kind of tear that. And maybe, you also have to evaluate your personal relationship with debt and, figure that out. But I wanted to present a different way of thinking about it. And so Jenny, can you maybe explain to everyone the J curve? Let's start there.
Yeah. So, not an expert on all of this, and I'll just kind of pull it up as I'm talking, but it's this curve that's talked about in economics. It's talked about in investing. It's talked about as it relates to foreign trade. It's also talked about in the startup world. And it's this idea, if you think about, an axis, like an X and Y axis, and you think about the letter J, you're going to start sort of in the middle, at the little place where the two axes meet. And, we want a business that's just going to sort of grow up and to the right? It's going to be this positive number that grows over time. And this idea of the J curve is that you're going to dip down into the negative And then you're going to go and you're going to shoot up much higher and much faster than you would if you were just sort of steadily growing. And I think that, in business, that's that part where you dip down is known as the valley of death. And a lot of businesses die in the valley of death, right? They never make it up back into sort of like positive margins again. In startups, really, this is the case. And it's because like lots of reasons, right? There isn't product market fit, or, like entrepreneurship isn't right for everybody. And you've got to sort of have some resilience in order to make it through that valley. And I think that that's just so symbolic, because if you really, really want to start something from scratch, if you really are an entrepreneur and you know that about yourself, you're a visionary person, you have an idea for the life you want to live and the thing you want to create out of nothing, you have to also have enough faith in yourself to assume that if you go down into that valley of death, that you are going to figure out one way or another how to get out of there. And you have to be committed to that wholeheartedly. And we just don't talk about that enough. I think that people don't know that this exists in our kind of business world, Sandy. And I think that we spend, as women building businesses on the internet, a lot of us spend a lot of time monkeying around trying to slowly grow something from nothing without the proper nutrition and resources to ever get it launched.
Yes, I absolutely think this is the best way to explain it with this J curve. And I think about when I had my brick and mortar, like 100%, you're not just going to go into positive cash flow. Like that's not even considered. The banks know that, that as the founder, you go to the bank, you present some made up business plan, and they give you a line of credit so that you can survive through the valley of death, right? Like, that you have all these expenditures to get going. And then over time, you will be in the positive. And I think for some reason, when we talk about online business, that whole model is like forgotten. Like people don't consider that, oh yeah, I've got to invest. I got to be in the negative for a little bit until I can get my way out of there. And if you know that, then I think there is less drama, less story about investing in yourself to go forward. And I think you have to believe, I think you touched on this, you have to believe in yourself so fully that you can get through it, right? I think you have to be willing to feel all the emotions of the roller coaster that we so often reference. You have to feel the fear and the drama and the uncertainty and the worry and the confusion. You have to be okay with all of that, but you have to know at the end that you're just going to keep doing things until you figure it out.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely do. And, I guess I also will say it helps to have the other people around you have faith in you too. And so you don't have to make this decision by yourself.
Right.
When I was enrolling in the program where we met, which was $5,000 US at the time, that was the last $5,000 in my bank account. And I had just had a baby and moved across the country, and that money was earmarked for something else. But I talked with my husband, and I had this vision of what I wanted to build, that I wanted to build a tech company. And I wanted to be able to fund the kind of work I wanted in the world. And he said, well, just use the money to sign up for the program. And I was like, why do you believe I can do it? And he's like, I know you'll do it. If it's possible, if other people have done it and you're going through the program, you'll be one of the people that does it. And I think that also helped me to have the confidence, like, wow, I know that about I on some level know that about myself also, but like to see that reflected by someone that knows me and cares about me also helped me. So I just want to acknowledge that privilege as well, right, that I had that kind of support behind me.
Yeah. And when I started my business, my brick and mortar, my very, very first business, I borrowed $50,000 off my mom. Like she put it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that, Sandy. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, cause I had a business partner, right? And he presented what we would do, and we equally had to put in, actually it was according to our shares. So it wasn't equal because they had more shares, but I had to put 50 grand. I didn't have 50 grand in the bank. Like I could have said, oh, I'll do that when I earn 50,000, but I'm never going to earn 50,000 unless I take a risk on myself and go into debt and figure it out and come out. And I think you're so much stronger when you do that. So I had to go to my mom, and she had to basically put it on her mortgage. It wasn't very hard for her because her house was paid off. So she was able to take a loan against her house. She gave me the cash. I put that into the bank for my the footwear business and the clinical business. And then we stayed, and we also had, I don't know what it was, 150,000 line of credit as well. Right.
Mhm.
So it was a huge, deep valley, and it was a few years of being in the negative before we saw positive cash flow. And every paycheck that I received, I would just pay a portion to my mom and paid her off as quickly as possible. And I asked her the same thing, like, why would you, she's like, no, you'll do it. Like, I absolutely know you will make this business a go. Right. And so, yeah. So I just like, those stories are really important. And maybe you don't have $5,000 in the bank or 50,000, a mom that can lend you 50,000, but I would just, ask each of you, if you are considering joining a program or a course or investing in yourself and your business in some way, where can, like, get creative, like, where could you do it? Right. Like, I would absolutely take money out of in Canada, they're called RSPs. I would take money out of those to do something that I knew in the long term would make me, 10 times, 100 times.
Yeah, no, totally. I would too. And I also have taken, I mean, in this particular instance that I'm sharing, that was the literally last penny in the bank, but I also have used credit cards and taken out loans for all kinds of stuff. And I guess, like, the other thing that I think without, at least for me, I think this maybe matters, is like, you're more invested when you do that. When you're like, I had to, like, I owed it to my partner to be successful. Like, I couldn't fail. And same thing, like, you're not going to fail because your mom. Like, your mom took a mortgage against her house.
Yeah.
So of course you're going to,
I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do whatever.
One way or the other, you're going to figure it out. And you sort of give yourself no other option. And I like to think about it. We were talking about this analogy earlier, this like valley of death analogy, where, like, if you're going to go get dropped in the valley, like the middle of Death Valley, let's think of a real valley of death, like the middle of Death Valley with, like, half a bottle of water and a half broken compass. Like, you've got to be committed to doing whatever it takes to survive. And like, that's entrepreneurship. And truly, if you want to be a business owner and an entrepreneur, like, you have to have that mindset. Like, yeah, the cards are stacked against me. Most people don't do this. This is not a conventional way to live and work and earn. And yet I know it's actually possible, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to show the world that I can do it. And like, you kind of have to have that survivalist mentality.
Right. But what I see happening is the women will be like, I'll enter that. What is it? What is it called? What valley
Death Valley.
Death Valley. I don't really know where that is. I'm going to enter Death Valley when I have, like, the best backpack fully stocked with all the food and the best fully equipped, all the things that I could need to survive that trip. That's when I'll enter. Right. That's what I'm seeing, is like, when I have the money in the bank, then I will go. And I'm like, you're never going to get the money in the bank if you don't go. So you have to, like, go into debt, take the half bottle of water into Death Valley and figure it out. I mean, you got to be smart about it, but, like, if you're truly committed to being an entrepreneur, you will figure it out. Like, it's all about longevity. Like, we've talked about this ad nauseum, both on the podcast and in our, coaching community in the inner circle. Like, it is a long game. And so you've just got to, you've got to do whatever it takes to stay in the game long enough to see the return on your investment. And that's like most startups fail, most small businesses fail in the first few years. And the people who don't fail are the most resilient, like, battle scarred people. And like, years and years and years is what it typically takes to see real success. But then you get to a point where it's like out of this world success, right? Like, it accelerates, and it's like better than your wildest dreams. And I think you go in year one, month one, hoping that that's where you're going to get in 6 months, but it's more like 5 years or 10 years. And then, but then it's like way better than you ever imagined. Right. Yeah. I think so. I'm going to use our inner circle program as an example here, because that's a 1-year program. And I know people are like, okay, so that, like, for us, the lowest tier of Inner Circle at the time of this recording is 6,000. So am I going to make my $6,000? Like, can you guarantee that I'm going to make my $6,000 back? And my answer is always, no, I can't guarantee that. I will not guarantee that. Like, it's 100% up to you. And even if you didn't, maybe you make 2 or 3 or 4 or 5,000 in a year, what happens the next year? You'll probably make 10 and then 50 and then 100. And then once you look back, it's like, oh my God, what was I so worried about with that initial 6,000, right? Like, you can't take it into you can't look at it into short time periods. You got to zoom out. That first initial investment in yourself and your business, that will 10 years later, you'll be like, what? Like, why was I hesitating? Right. Everyone's journey is going to be different, but I guarantee if you can start, then, anything is possible.
Yeah. And not to mention like the very important like life lessons and transformational experience on all planes of existence that happen when you're an entrepreneur, right? Like, you don't know how it's going to affect you in all the other ways besides just earning money. Like, you become fundamentally a different person. You are transformed. Right. Like, you are self-actualized. And so like, how do you even put a price on that? It's not for everybody. Like, I want to just keep emphasizing, there are definitely people who I think get into it and they're like, oh, wow, this isn't for me. That's fine. Got it. You know what? We cannot all be entrepreneurs. Like, the world would be very chaotic if we were all the same like this. We would all be, our institutions would crumble because all of us would want to rebuild everything all the time. So like, we've got to have the people that like are the worker bees and the cogs in the machine. And I love those people. Like, we need you. We need stability. But if you are called to be an entrepreneur and you don't take action, I think that's the saddest thing I can imagine as like a sort of human choice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's the chicken and the egg. Like, what comes first? I want to do this thing, but I don't have the money, but you're not going to get the money until you do the thing. So what we're saying is just invest in yourself, figure out a way, go into debt, use a credit card. What are the other avenues that you have access to money, and just start, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes. If you feel called to be an entrepreneur, yes, please start, because also the sooner you start, the sooner you'll see the returns, and it's always getting more crowded. So,
and we'll have more things that the world needs, right? Like, that's always the saddest part is like, these great ideas don't actually happen because people don't want to put something on a credit card or whatever it may be.
And the world gets made by people that don't look like you. That's the other thing, because somebody's going to go make stuff and they're going to probably look more like Mark Zuckerberg or someone else than you. And is that really the world that you want to live in and raise your children in?
No, thank you.
Nope.
Okay, let's do joy and hustle.
Okay, let's do it. You have the joy, and I don't know what it is yet.
I have the joy. So there's a new series on Netflix by Shonda Rhimes. Have you seen it?
Oh my God. I wanted to have a whole podcast about this. I didn't know you'd watched it yet.
Yeah, I just finished it last night. Inventing
we
Anna.
need to like get off of this podcast and record the next one because we need to talk about it.
Okay, so we'll make this short. So new Shonda Rhimes called Inventing Anna. It's being slammed by critics. And that will be in the podcast, I guess. And I liked it. And I think it's worth a watch. And it's about a young girl who arrives in New York and she tries to raise money for a business, and she has to, it's just like, it's so Shonda Rhimes, how she like has this like man who's, the boyfriend is raising money and the Anna's raising money, and the totally different experiences that they have.
Mm-hmm. It's so Elizabeth Holmes also. Like, we just have to talk about it. Oh my God. Okay.
Totally. Okay.
Yeah. It's really worth watching. I was captivated. I couldn't stop watching it. I stayed up all night. Like, I watched it like all night the other night, like the entire night. I didn't sleep.
But it's so good this is a good joy for this episode because it's the debt thing. Like, she didn't have money. Well,
yeah.
She
you gotta watch it. Don't ruin it for them. We're gonna. Yeah.
Okay. So
no spoilers.
That's the joy. Inventing Anna.
Oh my gosh.
Netflix.
It's
Shonda Rhimes.
so good. It's so good. Okay. Well, my hustle is like very small compared to her story, but it is just something that you and I both do. I just found out, Sandy, which is like, for those of you that use Google Calendar, I finally took the time like in the last couple of weeks to go ahead and like actually change all the colors in my Google Calendar events to be colors that I like to see. And it has totally changed my life. Like I have calm, neutral, beautiful colors that greet me all day in my calendar because I like honestly live in my Google Calendar during the week. It's just like a lot of meetings going on and a lot of work sessions. And so to have this screen open with beautiful things really makes a difference. So I would encourage anyone to take 5 minutes if you use something like Google Calendar and actually go in, find a color palette that you like, and just change up your colors for your meetings and your events. And I used a palette picker called colorhunt.co where you can go in. It's for designers, I think, to go and find matching colors that go together in a palette. And I just picked like a sherbet palette to be my spring. It's not spring yet, but I'm like wishfully thinking it's going to be spring, my like sherbet colored calendar. And I love it.
So you just grabbed the hex codes from that color picker and you just like manually added them for the different
events
things
and
Yep.
Yes. And it really is kind of life-changing. It's like such a small thing, but makes such a big difference in your day-to-day existence if you live in a tool like Google Calendar.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just like Facebook blue and stuff. And
it's like really jarring primary colors.
Red and
I think that's why I've always liked a paper planner is because I have all my like colors and my stickers and all my, it's beautiful. It's like artwork, right? And finally it got to the point where like, I do use it, but I mostly use it to take notes in now, my paper planner. Cause it's like too many meetings. And so I really need to be on my Google Calendar mostly. And I felt like so mad at like these awful colors yelling at me all day that I just decided to do something about it. So anyway,
I love it. Love it. Okay. Are we really going to do this Inventing Anna right now?
We are. Yeah. All right. So folks, we're going to go record this other show, which you will hear in the near future. And I also will say, since we were talking about the inner circle, we should give you a link to it. So if you're, on social, you can go to our link in bio, our marvelous.bio link and click over to apply for Inner Circle. But you can also just go to theinnercircle.works, learn more about our Inner Circle program to see if it's a good fit, and go ahead. If it sounds like a good fit, go ahead and apply.
And our invest in yourself.
Yes. Our team will get back to you. And if it's a good fit on our end, we invite you to invest in yourself and come join us.
Okay. Good job, Jenny. Thanks, everyone.
Right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.